Hello. This is Brendan Casey. I'm the Director of Experiential Learning at the University of Wisconsin Information School. I have with me today Tyler and Randall, and they have a really interesting story to tell you about not only Wisconsin and the University of Wisconsin, but entrepreneurship, which is really the focus of a lot of this a lot of these talks and content which we're going to have. So I will absolutely you hear enough from me, so I will absolutely turn it over to Tyler and Randall to tell us a little bit, just to get started, about sort of how they got started in business and in entrepreneurship, how they even learned what that was.
And kick it off. So Randall and I met at UW-Madison our freshman year. Um, Pretty much immediately knew that we both liked coming up with business ideas and one day wanted to start businesses together. We were roommates sophomore and junior year. We lived in the same house. Um, and basically we started brainstorming ideas initially immediately. We were like, we want to one day start a business. We at one point had
Do we lose Tyler?
for
I was
us.
gonna say we
Go ahead.
no
I don't
no
know.
your internet was cutting it out. Maybe it was mine. I don't know.
No, I heard Tyler's cutting out. You guys are hand in glove. Go right ahead. I'm sure you can finish each other's sentences by now.
You're back, Tyler. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, so I was just saying, like, we kind of had an immediate connection of we wanted to start some businesses together and see what would happen and take some risks trying that out. Eventually, we started a company called Birthday Box um, during our senior year at UW-Madison. Um, I think we came up with the idea probably over the summer leading into that year. After a lot of brainstorming of ideas during junior year, um, didn't go with one of those until this idea came up, and then we worked on it through the summer. Randall lived in Chicago, I lived in New York. We were mailing back and forth pieces of cake to each other to see if we could ship a single slice of cake. We thought at college you don't have that sort of the same birthday experience that parents can provide for you at home. So how could a parent ship a slice of cake to you? Eventually, we partnered with a bakery on State Street that made kind of single serve mini cakes, put together a website and started selling birthday boxes our senior year, which turned into a finals box, which sold a lot better than birthday boxes. And we could talk more about that too, but just a high level of our story. We started there after college, both got into our careers. A couple years into our careers, started brainstorming business ideas again, and then during COVID started Chipp. We can get into all the details about Chipp as well. Start jumping into that when you're ready.
Yeah, I'll kind of add on to what Tyler said. So Tyler and I met freshman year, as he said. I think one of the things that we connected on early, like you mentioned, was sort of our passion for entrepreneurship, but not just like the idea of making money and like working for ourselves. It was creating something new that had never been done before and solving a problem. And we both had very different background. Like I'm an engineer by trade, Tyler's more finance, but we both approached problems in different ways, which is something that was also really apparent right from the beginning, was that we really paired well in terms of our skills. And so, like you said, I mean, we spent time brainstorming, and it's funny because Birthday Box came out of the brainstorming, but there were a lot of other ideas that were not as good. And I think that's sort of the fun part of entrepreneurship is like you're going into uncharted territory. And if you're not comfortable with that, it can get uncomfortable very quickly. But if you're okay with making mistakes and just trying different things, like you said, we bought, plastic containers and literally tried to ship cake in the mail and it just didn't work. And then we tried something else and we kept iterating. And finally we were just like, sending cake in the mail is just not going to work. Let's try and partner with a local bakery. So that was like the version two. And then we kind of just continued to iterate on, like you said, we went from birthday box to finals box. So the constant iteration, but it was something that we like couldn't wait for after school to like go, let's go see if we can, ship a cake or go think of something different. So that was sort of the thing that initially invigorated our passion for entrepreneurship. And it continued long after college when really during COVID, we came up with the idea for what is now Chipp, but the concept around creating sort of a not reinventing, but reinvigorating the golf glove industry, right? We wanted to find an industry that had been kind of relatively boring, something that we were passionate about. Like we both knew in order to get a product far enough in the process, it had to be something that we were passionate about. Because if you're not, it'll become obvious like pretty quickly, and you'll lose a lot of patience, and you will also like not be willing to fight through it when it gets hard, because it will absolutely get hard. And so that's kind of where we're at now. We've been doing Chipp, which, we can show the website or walk through it, however is easiest, but we've been doing this now for a little over 3 years. I currently live in Dallas, Tyler's in Chicago. And so we've been doing it mostly remote. We'll meet up every once in a while, whether it's for like a trade show or just even dinner in Chicago or whatever the case is, and talk shop. But this is the current product that we have. So we design leather golf gloves. So we wanted to kind of anchor to the premium side of the market. And we wanted to create kind of fun, unique patterns. Like the whole concept was golf gloves are super boring. Like they're literally white and black. That's about all you can get. And if you look at the golf industry as a whole, you've got different articles of clothing, shirts, hats, you name it, are being completely customized for people. And the golf game as a game is growing. It's becoming a lot less snobby, a lot more fun and creative. And so we thought we could bring that to the golf glove space, which hadn't really previously been done before. And so it's taken us 3 years to really build up to this like number of designs, this level of inventory. One of the things that we've tried to do the best that we could is like bootstrap the whole thing. So, we both started with, a couple $1,000. We bought our first round of gloves. It was two designs. We tried to sell through them. And then we've slowly taken those profits, rolled it into more inventory. And, it's taken time to grow it up to the point where it is now. And we're still continuing to learn and figure out the best way to deploy that money and try and get that return so that we can continue to grow into new designs and new product SKUs. But we're pretty happy with the product that we've put out. Like we have a lot of people that are passionate about it, a lot of raving customers that kind of organically have been writing nice reviews, which is always great to see. And so we're continuing to try and grow this and having fun while doing it.
Now, one question I have for you both is, and I've got your site up here, is you talked about, passion for the subject matter or, the business. So I think that's an important distinction to make. What was your relationship with cake and stuff before, right? You were interested in the problem, I'm guessing, solving the problem more than cake. You were not like on baking championships. You don't have baking trophies behind you. So maybe if you can talk just a little bit more, you touched on it, how important that is, how valuable you think that is about your really a passion project that turned into a business. And then how do you think students can leverage that passion not only for a business, maybe in the longer term as things develop, but maybe in the near term as they try to impress potential employers with some of these job stories and passion stories about projects that they embark on?
Yeah, I think you can connect different types of passions to starting a business in a bunch of ways. So we both love golf, so that was an easy one of this. And I think to that extent, if you're going to make a product for golf or for something else, you want to be doing that activity, testing out your product. So you want to be passionate about it because you're going to spend a lot of time there. But also, I think if you have a passion for certain parts of running businesses, that can be where you find a lot of your excitement in this. Both of us have strong data backgrounds. Randall works directly in data. In my job, it's like 50% of my job is in data and analytics. We both get very excited about doing forecasting for the business. So then like we put a ton of time into cash flow forecasting because we find that interesting, or inventory management. And I think that's where we can use different passions. So we have a passion for golf, but we also have a passion for forecasting and analytics. And that makes up for some of the tasks that you don't want to do in running a business, like doing the taxes right now. I actually kind of find it interesting, but it's not the most fun thing in the world. So you have a trade-off of what you're really passionate about doing it, and then other parts. And then I think you can take that into your career. So you start a small business like this, but if you're trying to leverage it into a job at a larger company, you can really talk to like, I did all of this of some type of skill for a company from the ground up.
Yeah, and you got to have fun with it. Like to get back to your point about the cake, like Tyler and I live together, so I can confirm that neither of us are master bakers or anything like that. But I have a confirmed sweet tooth. Like I love cakes, cookies, all that stuff. And I remember, when I first went to college, I'm used to on my birthday, you know, getting a cake, someone buys you a cake, your family, whatever, you're having dinner, you're eating it, and it's great. It makes it feel like a birthday. And then in college, it's just like a regular day, right? Like your friends aren't really buying you cakes. You're probably not going to buy yourself a cake. But that was something that I always loved having on my birthday. And that was where the initial problem was. It was, okay, how can we solve this problem of families being able to almost celebrate their son or daughter that's in school? And so it was more about the user experience than it was the actual cake. And it was also the engineering like challenge of trying to ship a cake in the mail. Like that was really where it started. And there are some businesses. There's a business now, I think it's called Send Some Cake or Send a Cake or something like that. I actually got one for my wife a couple of years ago. And that was basically our idea. Like we were trying to do that before that was a business, and they executed it like 100 times better than we did, which just to give a little note on execution, ideas are awesome. Like make as many ideas as you can. I have a list on my phone of probably like 200 ideas. Whenever I think of one, I write it down. Execution is what separates you from everybody else. Like we're not the first people to think about trying to send cake in the mail. We're not the first people to think about designing golf gloves. There are many brands, many competitors that do similar things. Wouldn't let the presence of competitors be deterrence because it's all about execution and finding that little niche. And that's something to speak to what Tyler was saying about passions within the business. Having an engineering background, I worked in operations my first job out of school. Like I love the operations challenge of it. Like one of the big things that I did for Chipp the last couple of months was I found a 3PL, a third party logistics company for us to work for, worked with them on how to best get, inventory management and order fulfillment and all of that to be more efficient for us. And that was something, having worked in a warehouse my first year out of school, it was like experience I never thought I would need. And all of a sudden here I am. And it's like I'm able to talk the lingo with these guys on, how things are being charged and all of that. And so that is much more fun for me. And as Tyler mentioned, some of the forecasting stuff is also cool too. But I agree with everything he said, like finding little areas of the business that are passionate for you and ultimately being passionate about the problem you're trying to solve, because that'll get you through the things that you don't like doing as much.
So
One
go
quick
ahead.
thing I'd add to that is like how exciting it is to get a customer review. Like it takes a while to get your product out there, but once you get an excited customer sending a 5-star review, that's an easy thing to get passionate about to then keep your energy going with it. Or we had a customer emailing us like they know they want this glove, they're going to wait for it to come in stock. Like you also can get a feeling of you have a product people want. It's kind of a passion that happens once it starts up, but it feels also really good and very motivating.
Yeah, forget reviews. Just even having people like wanting to buy your product. Like I remember when we did birthday box, like that first order was like,
Yeah.
it was like magic. Like we were like racing to the store to get the cake and set it up and hand delivered it and the whole thing. And like I still get that excitement when we get orders. And we've done thousands of orders on Chipp, and it's something that like we take for granted when we get them during the day. But it is still very fun to think that somebody saw your product, whether advertising or unprompted, and decided to spend their hard-earned money on it, something that you created. Like it's a really, really cool and fulfilling feeling.
So you talked a little bit about your training and how that really did dovetail into certain aspects of the business. How much of your training and background did you have to put into sort of the business aspect of it in terms of solving the problem? What formal methods did you combine with informal things that you're just sort of naturally good at? How did you synthesize like actual functional training and real stuff that's sort of out there that people go by versus things that intuition that you had about things being possibly a success?
I guess where I would start is we're both very data driven, and we used our training in that as much as possible with everything that we are doing. So I'd say we're Randall's getting better at it, but we're not really good at creating content for marketing. It doesn't come naturally to us. We're trying to be better at it.
If anyone wants to laugh, you can look at our Instagram and TikTok. I make an absolute fool of myself on there, but yeah, not natural.
Yeah. Yeah. But like then you take your training of data analysis, and we can break down every step of our marketing funnel. So it's cost per impressions. If you see an impression, did you click it? If you clicked it, did you go to the site? If you went to the site, did you add an item to your cart? If you add an item to the cart, did you check out? Did you add a second item after that? That's where you start to take those techniques in to help out, I think, on where you have weaknesses everywhere else. So we don't know how to do marketing, but we know we can put numbers behind it and then use that to learn more going forward. The other area is just kind of like key terms you've learned in other areas. So like in classes, in jobs, my like finance classes from undergrad, I like to think I remember some of it, but like once I'm forced to do our taxes, some of it starts to come back. And you start to realize like all that training really does help, and you try to think back to what sounds familiar to then connect the dots, even though you might not remember 100% of it. It helps to connect the dots with a lot of pieces.
I would say like analytics is fundamental. Like being able to use and leverage data to make decision making is absolutely critical. But I would say like the ability to problem solve and critically think is the most important thing that school teaches you. Like you won't remember a ton of the details in classes, but you will train that part of your brain that solves problems, whether it's leveraging people that you know, your network, this thing that you heard in that class that one time. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you are gonna fail. It's how quickly you can iterate on those failures. And the person who's iterating and learning from those iterations the fastest is the one that is going to win. It's often not the people that have the idea first. It's how quickly can you iterate and learn off of that using data. And I want to make this statement too, because I think it's really important for anyone that's aspiring to be an entrepreneur. Like sometimes you just have to plunge in without having perfect data. Like I think Tyler and I both being data driven, like we wanted to run a survey and have everyone tell us, what designs we should have, what sizes we should have, what our price point should be, all this stuff. And if you wait for the right answer to be present in the data, it's either too late or you'll never have it and you won't start it because of that. Like you have to be willing to operate on imperfect data and just know that like you're gonna fail, but you'll take that failure and learn from it and then hopefully not make that mistake again. Like marketing. Like I took one marketing class in college when I was getting like my business minor. I don't know if Tyler took any marketing classes, probably did. But like I didn't really remember a lot of it. And honestly, like a lot of you sitting there, analytics, sounds like you guys are pretty technically heavy. Like I used to think marketing was stupid. Like I'm not gonna lie. I used to think you create a good product, you put it in the marketplace, people are gonna buy it because it's a good product. I've done a complete 180. Like marketing and brand creation is everything. And I am not a master marketer, neither is Tyler, but what we are good at is trying something, gathering data, figuring out what part of it worked, and then just doing more of that and continuing to iterate and try and fail quickly and more importantly, cheaply. Like I think there are ways that you can fail in really expensive ways that would make it a very big deterrent for you to continue with this. But I mean, with the way social media is, like you could literally make a product, go on TikTok, show it, and get immediate feedback on whether people like it or not, based on if people are viewing it, liking it, commenting. It literally costs you nothing to do. You don't have to pay for emails, buy a survey subscription, go spend time and money, paneling people. You can just put it on the internet and get immediate feedback. And I think that is super powerful. And being able to take that data and make better decisions off it is the name of the game.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. And I'm interested in a question that I'm sure everyone will ask me when I start sharing startup stories and they watch these stories is the role of money, the role of cash to get things going. How important, and of course it depends on what it is you're making and selling. How just explain a little bit where you placed money in your equation of getting started, breaking the chicken and egg cycle. Where did you place money early on in sort of putting your progress, behind some goalposts?
Yeah, I can start here, Tyler. So one of the things, like when you're starting off, you usually are not trying to spend a ton of money because you're just trying to test to see if the product works. With that in mind, money that you invest should be in as much of a tangible asset or thing as possible. Because if you were to spend a bunch of money on marketing and it just didn't work, then you don't have money, you don't have anything. Like we knew our biggest expense was our first round of gloves. We bought 2,000 gloves, 2 designs, each had a minimum order quantity of 1,000. And I think it cost us like $8,000. And then to get it imported and shipped, it was like 10 grand, which in the grand scheme of things, not that much, but like we were 24, 25, whatever, like it was a lot. But we knew that like if all else failed, we could go to any golf store and be, hey, do you want to buy these for 6, 7, $8 a piece and get our money back? They would do it because they could sell it for sure. So we felt fairly confident that we'd get our money back versus had we decided to put all of our money in developing a website and, you know, maybe doing some other complex things without having any market proof. And all of a sudden it doesn't work. Now we're out of money and don't have, like I said, failing cheaply. We don't have a second bullet to fire now because we just wasted 10 grand on nothing. So trying to invest it in hard assets is really important. In the current state of the company, I mean, like cash flow is king. Like the more inventory that you have, you're obviously having to pay to store it. You have a lot of money that is involved in like the day-to-day operations of the business, especially now that we're working with third-party companies more. And so inventory is nice unless all your money's tied up in inventory. And then you have a different problem where you can't spend money to create that demand, whether it's via marketing or investing in photography or whatever the case is. So it is a constant balance. It's something that we're still learning. Like we have pretty much taken any profits, rolled it back into the business, tried to grow the inventory, continue to grow the overall operations. But that's not to say that we still don't have like cash crunch issues at certain times of the year because we are, as much as we hate to admit it, like it is a seasonal business right now. Our biggest demand periods are, you know, April, May, June, July for the most part. And in some of these months, like right now, you know, it's you're paying someone to store your inventory. Do we pay money to market and increase that demand, even if it's not the most efficient time to market? Like we know marketing's most efficient in the summer. So are we willing to spend now to make that trade-off of like, well, we could at least get some of our cash back and reinvest it into new product. Luckily, we don't deal with like expiration dates or anything like that. That's a whole separate issue. But you don't want to hold on to the same product for too long. And so kind of being smart with your money is key for a lot of reasons.
Yeah. I'd say, while we don't deal with expiration dates, one of our issues is there's a lot of golf glove sizes. So you need to have a huge combination of, because you only buy for one hand. So you need to have left and right hand. And we have 20 SKUs per design. So keeping all those in stock is goal. It goes up again. Nope.
No, I got you. You were just saying we had 20
Okay.
SKUs per design. We
Yeah.
got 10 designs, so like 200 SKUs, which you would never guess by looking at our website. It's like, oh, they got 10 gloves. Like, how that's not that bad. But behind the scenes, and we just got all the inventory out of my garage, so I was having to organize all that, and it was a pain. But some of these e-commerce brands that I know we like envy are the ones that have like 3 SKUs and they're just shoveling those, and it's like, man, that would be so much easier from a cash and inventory management perspective that, you know, if we had to do it again, that'd be something that we'd learn. But that gets back to the whole point. Like, we don't know if this business is going to be the forever business, right? Like, are we going to be able to quit our jobs and retire off this business? Who knows? But, you know, if it fails, we'll definitely just try something different. And the next one, we probably will do something that has less SKUs. Like we just learn from it and continue on.
Yeah. I was just going to add a little more to that cash flow strategy if people find it interesting. So we did initial investment. We've basically tried to invest as little as possible after that. We've agreed that like we want to grow it based on profit. So we're basically taking 100% of all of our profit at all times to go into inventory, particularly right now, sales. All of those sales are taking all that cash right now to almost zero cash, like the minimum we can be at to buy as much as possible inventory for the summer. We know we can sell them profitably and we'd prefer not to invest more cash. So it's like, how fast can we grow it purely based on turning back profit into the business? And for us, that's been about a doubling or tripling every year.
Yeah, and if you wanted to grow fast, I mean, it gets back to the idea of funding. Like you'd have to take on some elements of debt unless you're willing to just like go all in and put all your money in, which like, you know, we if this business had an opportunity to quit my job, like I would for sure do it. It is challenging to continue to put a ton of money in while you're still figuring it out. You're kind of hedging your risk a little bit. But like if you wanted to grow quickly, and I'm actually really thrilled with the way that we've done it because it forces us to be really responsible with the decisions that we make. Like I know some people who have started businesses who have gotten funding and they just tend to be a little bit looser with things. Like no one is going to spend your money better than you. And so when you're spending other people's money, it's a lot easier to like look past inefficiencies. And so we're not opposed to taking on funding and continuing to put our own money in once we feel like we've really figured it out. And we're still learning to a point where, we've improved the marketing funnel, we've improved our operations, we've improved the website conversion, we've improved all these critical things. And eventually we're still trying to get to that point where we're like, hey, this is a question of if we put $1 in, we get $1.10 out. If you're telling me I do that every single time, how much money can I give you? Because that's just like what you hope to create. We're still not there yet. So we're again trying to learn cheaply and not grow too quickly to a point where it overcomplicates the core of what we're trying to do and make it ultimately too difficult. I mean, you hear about businesses too that add too many SKUs, go into too many businesses, don't focus. Like we've intentionally niched down to just golf gloves because there's a lot of golf apparel brands that do gloves, hats, shirts, everything. But what separates us is that we specialize in gloves. We make a high quality glove. We've got designs. You know what you're getting when you get there. That limits us for a lot of opportunities, like in off peak seasons and higher average order value, something that we've talked a lot about. But it does allow us to hyper focus on that, make that super efficient. And once it is, hopefully it's sustainable, and then we can profitably add something else. And so that's been our kind of stance, like Tyler said, kind of growing. It is definitely more slow, but it is responsible. And, that's kind of how we've chosen to do it. But there are other ways, certainly, to go about it.
Yeah, that's definitely good advice. Some of the best advice I got was, spend this money as if it were your own, and I sort of never forget that, and it's served me well. So I don't know where you got it, but whoever shared that with you, thank them.
It's easy to say, hard to do. I mean, I think
Yeah,
everyone spends their own money better than they would spend somebody else's. It's just kind of how it goes. So having skin in the game is important. Like I'm sure a lot of people watch Shark Tank and stuff. And I love like when the sharks will ask them, like how much money have you put in? Like how much time are you putting in? Because if you're not willing to put in the time, I'm not willing to put in the time for you. I'm not willing to give you money to kind of offset that. So, we haven't needed to ask anyone for money because we've been doing it on our own. And I think the day that we do decide to do that, it's either a question of, are we just trying to de-risk to a point where we don't believe in the product anymore, which hopefully that's not the case, or is there this massive purchase order that we just can't fund on our own and need some access to outside capital? That is like the more organic and healthy part of it. But both like definitely exist.
well, when you talk about those scenarios, how are you balancing this responsibly, right? You guys are working, you have jobs, and you're running this business. Just share a little bit about what that was like, getting this thing going while you're working, like doing all that. Explain a little bit about what that takes, because I think that's a real important thing to share with anyone who's trying to start something but not going to go all in just with hopefully a parachute that'll open. So you're doing things the real smart way. Maybe just share a little bit about some of your philosophies and maybe strategies that you do to work a day job, if you will, and do the business.
Yeah. So, I mean, for me, I used to work in a pretty demanding industry where I was working, around the clock, weekends. It was definitely more challenging to put that time in. But I think what that taught me was like just the grit and hard work needed to get something off of the ground. So right now, I mean, both Tyler and I have 9 to 5s. We meet, once a week for usually about an hour and a half, 2 hours on Tuesday. Outside of that, we're doing prep, we're emailing, at the time I was dealing with orders in my garage. So, you want to do it to a level that you can sustain it. Like obviously if you burn yourself out, it's not going to be fun and it's just you're not going to get far enough to make it successful. So you have to balance that. You also have to balance things in your life like family, friends, your health, all of that's like super important. But you're gonna have to sacrifice going out with your friends potentially and watching TV, catching up on Netflix for hours because, for me it's getting up at 5:30 or 6 a.m. some mornings to get stuff done before work. Sometimes it's meetings, even like this, like after work. But we love it. Like we're passionate about it. Like to me, this is equivalent to a side income. It's also a hobby. Like for me, it's the equivalent of someone playing an instrument. Like for me, I enjoy growing a business and like tackling new challenges and things like that. So that's how I view it. And it is hard. Like you definitely have to, I heard your 9 to 5 makes you live, and your 5 to 9 keeps you alive, kind of a thing. And you do it for as long as you have to do it. Like my dream eventually is to not have a 9 to 5, that I could eventually make the side hustle the full-time hustle. But until that's a reality, and again, being smart about it, like, could I quit my job tomorrow and do this full time? Yeah. Would I like struggle financially? Yeah. So like I can't afford to do that. Some people have that luxury. Their business booms early and they can't keep up with demand unless they quit their job, and that's great. But the reality is like you have to kind of do what you have to do to be able to continue to afford being able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with all that. I think you have to just find that schedule where you can hold time for it. I think the fact that we've said we have a weekly call, it tends to go more like 2 hours. We know we are meeting to work on things together at that time. We know outside of that time, we get our work done at whatever time works for us individually. But I think it's also the importance of having a partner in what you're starting. Like you can hold each other accountable. You know when you're going to talk, what you need to talk about. You also can help each other out when life gets in the way. So like each of us have had weddings in the past year. So when we each have busy times in the past, if one person's on vacation, the other person has to pick up on customer emails. Right now I'm going through moving states and Randall's helping pick up some more of my tasks. So I think it really helps deal with life to have someone to kind of go through it with. And you hold each other accountable too. But yeah, you have to enjoy it because it is a lot of hours after work. We both have demanding regular day jobs. I don't know if you can see my screen lighting up every like minute with like the favorites on Slack that I can't turn off. So it's a lot of multitasking also. Um, yeah, but we
Yeah,
got
but having a business partner that Tyler mentioned, one that you can trust, two that you work well with, three that you can rely on for like whether it's coverage or even just those difficult times. Like there are some days that I wake up and I'm like, this isn't going to work, and those days Tyler is like, this is so going to work. I've got this idea, great. And then there's other times where it's like the other way around. And so having that yin and yang, being able to balance and continue to move the ball forward is great. I also think partners at home, like Tyler and I both have very understanding wives that let us spend time doing this. Like that's also really important. Because if you're getting, the pull from both ends and it's not everyone supporting, moving in the same direction, it can cause stress and definitely make it difficult. So partnerships both at home and at work, super important.
So, I know you've alluded to a lot of, sort of plans. You're in the growth phase, things are going along. What are sort of like, your ideas for the future, not only for this business, but maybe other ideas or other things, things in that realm, because it seems like you're learning from each little beat point in the stories of your own journeys, and that's important. I guess what kind of do you see up ahead in that dashed line up ahead?
I think first on Chipp before the other businesses, but I think Chipp, a huge step for us right now is Randall was shipping all of our products until a month ago.
Mm.
So we are now in a warehouse. The company can run if we are both out for a day. That's a huge, just a huge step of how we can grow it. So we're looking to scale that just as much as possible. Again, every dollar of profit we get, trying to invest it back in. One day we'll find the right marketing partner to really do our marketing and our advertising for us potentially. Right now, we still do that. I think it's basically growing the team is one of the next big steps for Chipp. And maybe we're the only two core employees, but we find the right marketing agencies to help with us and agencies for other aspects. Next year, I won't do our taxes. We'll probably get an accountant.
Mm.
So scaling the company in those ways is a big next step for Chipp. And I think every year trying to more than double the business, which starts to add up after a couple of years. Yeah, I don't know if you'd add anything to that, Randall, for Chipp.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think for Chip, it's continuing to improve the scalability of it. Like for a while, it was, ordering out of the garage and, kind of having a couple orders a day. But, we've tried to do some networking in the industry and talking to brands that, are parallel to us, right? They're doing different things in the golf space, but there's a lot we can learn from them. And, it gives you a concept of how big the industry actually is and how much room there is to run. And so I'm very excited about continuing to try and to grow that, because not only what it would mean for Chip, but what it would mean for the inevitable future company that we try and start. Like when you're a one-time entrepreneur, you usually don't just stop at one. Like you take your learnings, you do something different. So like I already know that if we needed to start another product, we could do it, and we could do it in probably like a quarter of the time that it took us to do this one. So that feels really good. I also think like from a direct to consumer, that's primarily what we do. There's a ton of room, and something that we haven't really done a ton in is like in the retail space, in like the custom B2B space. Like we've done a little bit here and there, but that's a whole separate problem, right? Like D2C is one avenue, one channel of the business. There's these whole other problems that are, some other businesses are only B2B. And so like you can take those learnings and roll it into a business like that if you were to do that in the future. But for us, again, the Chip is a foundational learning spot for us that has the side benefit of growing a brand and a business in an industry that we're confident in. But for me, I view it almost as like school in a way, where we're constantly learning and iterating. And so whether it's with Chip, whether it's with a different business down the line, I know Tyler's got a lot of ideas. I keep having a lot of ideas. So, time is probably the biggest constraint right now. If I didn't work 9 to 5, I'd probably have like 3 of these things up and running by now. But we're just continuing to learn, and I think that's the most important thing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think if it, as we get into our next ideas one day, I'd love a non-inventory product, a full app.
Tyler's big on the apps. Yeah.
Everything I suggest as future ideas is all apps and sites and tech, and Randall suggests the physical products.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So maybe one day we'll try one of those, one of the tech ideas, which just dealing with inventory. It adds a lot of complexity, which again, is fun to learn and everything. But I think it's
And
interesting.
cost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And cost. I mean, the concept of like a digital business where your margins are just a lot larger. Your startup money usually is a lot more expensive, and competition's a little bit easier. And like that is the one thing about our business, is if some business wanted to copy us, they couldn't really do it overnight. With an app or something like that, if you've got really talented coders, there's not a ton proprietary about a lot of that stuff. It again boils down to the branding. There isn't a ton of proprietary stuff about us, but there's a whole process of learning. Like even when we first started with our manufacturer, it was a couple rounds of samples going back and forth, first finding the manufacturer, getting the product to a point where you wanted it to be, investing in it, setting up the site, getting all the funnel figured out. So it's not just like an overnight thing that somebody could copy, and that does give you a little bit of a competitive advantage. But yeah, it would be nice to have something non-inventory, I wouldn't even say this business is capitally intensive, but it's not capitally intensive, if that makes sense. So yeah, something a little bit different would be nice.
I think the other part of that too is by doing this, I think to us it's obvious that there's a path to doing this where it makes us way more money than our day jobs. Like there's a path to making businesses that make you way more money with potentially even less hours in the day, potentially needing to go into it, or the same amount and just a lot more reward. But when you start to do it, you can see how possible that is. And it might take a couple tries, but it's totally possible. And we also see like it's possible for us to sell this company. If this company maybe doesn't make us enough recurring income to fully quit our jobs, there are paths to selling small businesses, even if they don't yet blow up. So yeah, it shows that it opens a lot of doors once you have to try and start something to learn the skills.
Yeah, and it depends what you want to get out of your career. Like for me, a job working for somebody else, their job is not to make you rich. Like it's just not. If you want to make money, retire early, and control your own life, you have to take increased risk and do something on your own. That's what drives me about moving this business forward is I've decided over, I've had 3 different jobs in pretty different industries. In each one, there's just the commonality of, wanting to work for myself, kind of control my own schedule and ultimately just control your own destiny. Like the concept of you make as much money as what you're able to grow. And it's not even so much about the money. Like I heard a quote one time that really resonated with me, but it's like I don't love money. I like making it. It's like the concept of making the money. Like I don't actually even buy like anything. Like I just it's not even about that. It's more about the financial freedom and what that means for, your family, travel, all that. And again, working for somebody else, that's not their goal. Like that's not their goal for you. But it always comes with risk. If it were easy, everyone would do it. And so, I mean, we've been at this thing for 3 years, haven't really reaped any, real monetary benefits from it yet. But we keep planting those seeds, and hopefully one day the fruits of the labor will come. And whether that's we're running it and growing it, or we sell it off to a different brand, or whatever the case is, it'll be worthwhile.
I agree. I can attest to a couple exits in my past. You guys are on the right track, and you're sort of thinking about things the right way. It's definitely a good way to go, taking the risk when you can. So just finally, just to wrap up on entrepreneurship and just some advice for the students that may have an idea or maybe thought about the idea or maybe doubting themselves on an idea. And maybe they're afraid to share the idea because they think someone's going to steal it from them. I guess what would you say, just to our students at Wisconsin High School about how to cultivate and sort of feed and water these ideas that they have? And what's your advice for those folks?
Yeah, I mean, my advice would be to just start. I mean, it's scary. Like you will not know what you're doing. And if you don't find that fun and interesting, then maybe entrepreneurship isn't right for you. But be comfortable being uncomfortable and just proceeding. Like most of the most successful businesses and people, they started in the same place that you're starting. And it sounds cliche, but it's true. Like most people that know everything started knowing nothing, and they just failed so many times that they learned it. Like if I were to go and present to you on like marketing, how to set up a Facebook advertisement, you'd probably think I was like a subject matter expert. I knew nothing about this like a year ago, but watched a ton of YouTube videos. We've tried, we've failed, we've iterated, we've kept going. So you have to be willing to take on that like uncomfortability of not knowing something and plowing ahead. And there's going to be a lot of frustrations, but just getting started is the most important thing. As far as like the ideas being stolen piece of it, like I mentioned before, unless you have like a true piece of proprietary technology or something, it's all about execution. Like the best business people could tell a competitor the idea, give them a head start, and they would still beat them out because they are better executors. They're better at building a network, a brand, whatever the case is. I mean, even now, it's like if you wanted to go and start a sunglasses company, it's like there's a million sunglasses, but yet every year it seems there's one that finds a niche, executes brands a little bit better, and it takes market share from some of the bigger competitors. So there's a ton of opportunity. Just get started, get immediate feedback as quickly as possible. And my last piece of advice would be fail while failing's cheap and easy for you. Like, you guys, whether you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s, like both Tyler and I are like 30. So still relatively young, but we both have houses, we've got wives, we were trying to build families at some point. Like life gets hard, and it's a lot harder to take those financial risks, those time risks, all of that stuff. So, if you're living at home or you got some money saved up or whatever, this is the time to take a chance. Like you won't regret looking back in 20, 30 years. I'm glad I put a couple $1,000s into that idea and flushed it out. Because then at least like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if you're 50 and you're like, man, I wonder if I would have tried that. Or you see this, send a cake brand come up and you're like, damn, Tyler, if we had just executed a little bit better, maybe that could have been us. You'll never know. So try early, try often, be prepared to fail and fail cheaply and as quickly as possible.
That was basically exactly what I was going to say. Like most people just don't try at all. The different, like, true, like everyone has some idea, and 98% of people don't even try to do anything about it. It doesn't matter if you even like you won't feel confident that you can do it well from the beginning, or that you have the knowledge, or maybe you feel confident, but you definitely don't know how to do it to start. Like, you just have to start trying to do it. And yeah, try to do it as cheap as possible. And if you'll see it click and things start to work, and then you start to invest a little bit more and a little more time, but like, you just have to put a little bit of time into it. And I think setting aside time every week is really important when it's maybe not your number one priority in life. You have to block time to make sure that you don't put it off a month and then 3 more months and then a year and you never start it. So it's really just try it, and could work out. Like, nothing's gonna go wrong by trying.
Your first idea will not be the one that you proceed with. That's almost a certainty. So yeah, just give it a shot, and you'd be surprised how many people are willing to help. Like, the more people that you tell, they'll either tell you it's interesting, they'll tell you they don't like it, whatever. If you tell 1 million people and they all don't like it, then maybe you should, think of something different, and that's a way to get quick feedback. But also don't, if you have that vision for it and passion for it, like, just keep going. You got to be convicted in what you're doing.
Fantastic advice. Randall and Tyler, thanks a lot for taking the time to share your experience with your other folks here at the University of Wisconsin. We really appreciate you taking the time. And of course, we're all pulling for you, not only in Chipp Golf, but sounds like some things in the future that we'll also be hearing about. Something tells me this is not the last, it's not the first we've heard of you, and it's not the last people will hear of you either. So this is really exciting. Thanks for sharing your time with the students here and with everyone here at the Information School. And please keep in touch. And if there's anything we can do for you, let us know.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having us. Go Badgers.